What remains to be a joke in the court of public opinion is a nightmarish reality to those who know of the true entity. Ask almost anyone in Haven what Gaaaaang is, and they will laugh and tell you it's a gang of deviant hooligans and delinquent miscreants. However, those native to the Frontier District in the Western Ward will tell you that the Gaaaaang is a legit criminal faction worth their weight in terror, and both parties would be correct. Let's first clear up the misconception. Yes, there is a Dorinthian-based gang in Haven who call themselves the Gaaaaang and cause all sorts of mayhem. Many years ago, a highly favored student, Wen was wrongfully expelled from Haven University for being linked and being the nephew of a crime lord who flooded Haven with banned poisons. This was during a period where cuddly carnivore was being weaponized on a mass scale and deaths were piling up as a result. The dean was allegedly a dealer himself, and many accused him of attempting to sever ties with the crime family by expelling Wen. The students protested and revolted by gluing dildos all over town and on campus, symbolizing how much of a dick the dean was. There were so many dildos in the city that local law enforcement were so busy yanking Wangs off of the property, that the crime rate had risen considerably as law enforcement was too distracted. Now, here's where the fake Gaaaaang begins and ends. One student who still attended the school and was the ringleader of these pranks is said to have had family ties to the criminal empire, the Horde of Hao. Being a renowned and major drug-running faction, this brought a lot of attention and inspired the student to create his own offshoot of the Gaaaaang, not to be confused with the real Gaaaaang, who were a band of brothers notorious for the dirt they dished under the Horde of Hao's banner. This student felt he was paying homage to the Horde of Hao, whom he was loosely tied to. His father did dirt with them, but was essentially insignificant. This student was creative and knew that the Gaaaaang moniker made perfect sense for their dildo-themed shenanigans. This faux Gaaaaang has gotten more violent over the years as many of its members actually grew into more prominent criminals who spawned their own gangs that litter the WWC criminal archives, all in pursuit of being mistaken for the real Gaaaaang. Some of these members faked it so much that they began to believe their own lie and felt that they were actually a Gaaaaang member. One summer, the quote-unquote Gaaaaang carried out yet another massive public display of vandalism in Haven with use of glue and dildos. However, them tying up the police officer led to a massacre in Haven that was caused by the real Gaaaaang. One summer, the quote-unquote Gaaaaang carried out yet another massive public display of vandalism in Haven with the use of glue and dildos. However, this time, them tying up the police led to a massacre in Haven that was caused by the real Gaaaaang. Now, was this a coincidence? Maybe. But this is where the true Gaaaaang comes in and how the difference between the real and the fake got muddy. There was a despicable man that exists, and his name was Noxious Wang. Not much is known about Noxious Wang, his brothers, or the Gaaaaang before they arrived in Haven and began working hand in hand with the Horde of Hao. From what has been pieced together by the WWC, the Gaaaaang turned up in the Frontier District with the Horde, but then when half of the district was decimated by Grinfall, most of the Horde of Hao went along with it, and so the Gaaaaang shifted its priorities to the Western Ward. From there, they began ravenously eating up territories like a plague, cutting into and making enemies of the caretakers along the way. Noxious Wang and his 5 brothers began a tour of arson and destruction and various other behaviors that inspired wannabe Gaangs, which led to an official term, Wangsta or Wang, being used by the WWC for gangs trying to achieve acknowledgement. Their influence was sensational in the worst way. They weren't even trying to take over gambling and drug businesses, but instead were burning them to the ground. They were not interested in money, but in breaking down the systems and rebuilding them to serve their own purposes. What those purposes are ultimately a mystery only known to Noxious Wang himself. Rumor has it is that his eldest brother once questioned the motives of the Wang gang. That brother is now missing a tongue and sits in a wheelchair. Like a wildfire, the Wang gang quickly spread across Haven. It was only fitting that they would become notorious for their penchant for burning their enemies to a crisp, but just long enough that they could and would survive and thus live with third-degree burns. Facing an end like that almost always resulted in a join-or-die scenario for those worthy of the choice. Initiate members of the Wang gang have to take a vow of silence lasting 1 lunar year. If they speak, they have their tongues removed. In addition to cooking their victims, the most common Wang gang calling card is branding the gang symbol into the forehead of their enemies. 8 arrows in radial pattern. This was for general purposes. Another indication that a person is really a member of the real Wang gang is they traditionally almost always wear headphones and through said headphones subject themselves to a series of recordings of their leader Noxious's mantras and chants of an unknown language to drums and windpipes. They believe his words to be enlightening. That, or they wish to remain on his good side because Noxious Wang wasn't all there. Though the youngest of 6, Noxious somehow surpassed his brothers and became the Lang Dao, which means leader of the Wang gang. Some say he threatened to kill the loved ones of his siblings. Others say he tortured them with the retro electro synth disco that he's so fond of. From what the WWC and Haven PD have on record from some of these victims is that Noxious Wang is a severely unhinged man. His religious beliefs are allegedly steeped in the theory of Soak, the god king of chaos and unbalance, and believes he is the reincarnation of said king. Interestingly, there is no god or religion like this on record and strengthens the accusations of his madness. It gets worse. When the calamity happened, Noxious was bestowed with the powers of super strength, pyromania, and telekinesis. His brothers were also affected, though their powers are unknown. For their enemies, these were not welcome gifts. For his pets, well, Noxious has a cat called Toxin. When he first awakened his pyrokinetic gamma mutation, he accidentally burnt the cat to a crisp, and has done so accidentally 4 times, and replaces his cat every time. When he first awakened his pyrokinetic gamma mutation, he accidentally burnt the cat to a crisp, and has done this accidentally 4 times and replaces the cat every time. In short, Noxious Wang has a bone to pick with Looper Kin, and personally I don't know who to feel sorry for more. Maybe it's a good thing that the world is being destroyed as not to harbor the cancer that is Noxious Wang.